Hi, welcome to Family Sociology. We're now looking at the lone parent family. In recent years, the lone parent family has been among the fastest growing family type in Canada. Yet in many ways, this represents a very diverse group. There are various routes toward lone parenthood. Maybe you never married, divorced, or widowed. Now, some factors affecting these families are specific to their modes of formation, while others affect all family types. Now, both aspects need to be explored. Now, this topic is particularly important for everybody since some of you already will be or have become part of a lone parent family. In addition, if we find ourselves in workplaces and work-oriented services, these client populations will undoubtedly include an increasing number of single parents. So let's look at the lone parent families in Canada. Now, by definition, Canada's definition for lone parent family is a mother or father with no spouse or common law partner present, living in a dwelling with one or more children. Now, in 1961, 8.4% of all census families. In 2016, the lone parent family was 17% of all census families. Now, one aspect that occurs to increase the number of single-parented families was the Divorce Act of 1968. This was known as the no-fault principle of marriage. Directly after that, the number of divorces dramatically increased. More women were pursuing post-secondary education, and their role in the paid workforce was increasing. Now, there were amendments to that act in 1985, where it shortened waiting times for divorces to 1 year. It produced another huge jump in divorces. Now, these issues are associated with divorce will be covered more completely in the next chapter. Now, teen pregnancies have some contribution to the single-parent family, but they're not as frequent as 30 or 40 years ago. Teens tend not to marry and put their children up to adoption, thus their contribution. The overall completion of family was changing and accepting more variations than just the nuclear family. So if we review the infographics, if you notice on the top left-hand corner, the green. Now, lone parents in 1931 were 75% were widowed due to the death of during childbirth, or men were killed in wars, or the divorce rates were lower. Unmarried and single parents were few. However, in 2001, 8 in 10 lone parent families were headed by women. Men as lone parents have varied from the high of 28%, mostly due to maternal mortality. In 2011, about 20% of single-parented families were parented by men. Now, culture, immigrants, or indigenous people can have an impact on lone parent families, where some cultures are more accepting or have different stages of acceptance of the milestone. Many families spend some time as one-parent families before, after, or between two-parent episodes. Therefore, these data need to be considered with this in mind. The stats of one parent are dynamic, and they do change over time. So how one gets to be a lone parent can be varied. Either you were never married, you ended a relationship, you were widowed, but most of the time that's women. Now, in this whole issue of lone parent, age is a very important variable, especially when being a teen parent. Teens have many other critical issues to address: employment, education, identity, independence. Now, older single women are more likely to have finished their schooling and have had their careers established. They're less likely to compromise on getting married, knowing what they want and won't give up on it. Now, some women will seek artificial insemination or arrange to have a man father a child, not looking for a nuclear family, instead looking to deliberately be a single mother. Now, divorce and widowhood involves many emotions, the good and the bad. Again, age can play a role here. How old at divorce or widowhood? This can lead to financial challenges and changes in a standard of living issues. Also to consider that children in these lone parent families, their age and their development and emotional needs are involved in the mix of lone parent families. So how long does it last? Well, this is not an easily answered question. Generally, younger lone parents are lone parents for a shorter period of time than older widowed mothers. The teen mother will usually marry before the age of 30, and children's age play a role here as well. So if we're going to look at this issue of lone parenting, we might as well be looking at it through a lens. So much of our lone parenting is through our own personal experience, where we think we understand these issues entirely. This is also a social context to lone parenting. So we're going to look at some of the sociological perspectives to see what is in part of these contexts with these perspectives. The structural functionalists, they consider functions of social structure, of which family is one of those structures in society. Now, some structural functionalists see lone parent families as dysfunctional, as they do not produce children, and they see that in most cases the family functions are difficult to achieve or are not achieved at all. Other structural functionalists see the social conditions, economics, healthcare, education can either help or hinder lone parent families. As usual, conflict considers inequity and access to resources, often resulting in lone parent families needing to utilize social welfare services, further alienating them. The feminists, their focus is predominantly on how lone parent families are led by women predominantly, and the overall disadvantages their status has in society. Symbolic interactionalists, being the only face-to-face theory, their interests are to consider how do lone parent families manage to juggle the home, the work, and childcare. What additions, informal family supports do they depend on for families and friends? The ecological perspective, they consider the relationship between the lone parent family and the interaction between the other aspects of society. So let's consider what other issues are faced by lone parent families. Figure 9.1, you see the average income after tax by economic family types. So economics becomes a big issue. So economics, well, the female lone parent families are at risk of living in poverty. Working lone mothers experience a great deal of tension in juggling work, family, and daycare. Many lone mothers are discouraged from working by the lack of available and affordable daycare. In addition, higher education levels and earning capacity has lessened the need for social assistance. The development of a social assistance began in 1966 with the Canada Assistance Plan to assist single-parent families to receive benefits until children hit age 18. In the 1980s, 1990s, the assistance was altered and termed workfare or welfare to work. It tended to be of some big help. These changes were not that helpful to single mothers. In 1998, the federal government provided an increased support to lone parent families with the introduction of the National Child Benefit. Now, the National Child Benefit, it was to reduce child poverty, reduce overlap in social assistance programs, and encourage parents to find jobs. Now, available and affordable childcare is still one of the biggest impediments to finding and maintaining work. Family and friends can and do help. However, minimum wage and atypical hours create obvious challenges. Housing is a big issue. Housing is the single largest expense for most single mothers and may be difficult to find. Single mothers are more likely than others to live in low-income areas for longer periods of time. Most can't buy a house, and they tend to live in apartments, row housing, or other cooperative housing. For the benefit of children, space is really important to have a play area, proximity to schools, medical, stores, and other needed services. Low-income areas are not always close nor convenient to the many things that many families need. Low-income housing areas where privacy, stigma to single mom and children. Now, Some of the issues that are faced by lone parent families, well, it's important to have social supports. Both lone fathers and mothers have high rates of mood and substance abuse disorders than married in comparison. The majority of single parents report adequate contact with others, with a minority reporting being lonely. Social support significantly reduces the likelihood of these disorders. More of the proactive or protective factors for lone fathers than lone mothers. Social supports can be separated into two areas: how supportive society is as a whole to single parents, and the immediate source of emotional and practical help. There's been an explosion of internet websites devoted to lone parents, whether it be dating, support, blogs and vlogs to sort of help people. So family life in lone parent is quite a bit different. There's two aspects of family life that are affected by lone parenthood. Relationships within a single parent family and relationships within families formed by adult children of single parents. Role strain becomes more likely in lone parent families. There's much juggling of responsibilities. Single parents are less likely to be emotionally supportive of their children. Example, they tend to be harsher on discipline, less parental supervision. Children have less success at schools. Now, it's very important to remind you, these are data representing single parent families across Canada. These are not examples of our own personal experiences. And so our experiences may differ than the data, but it's important to recognize that this complexity of single parenthood is broader and more complex than our own personal experiences. These issues are not solely a single parenthood issue. It's more and more complex. However, statistically, this bears out. Individuals who grew up in lone parent families because of divorce are more likely to have formed partnerships, become a couple at an earlier age. So are children in lone parents families at greater risk? Several explanations account for the differences between children from one parent and stable two-parent families. Some of the difficulties result from economic hardship. The quality of parenting may have an effect. Stress can create many problems. Loss of contact with non-residential parent, as an example. Witnessing conflict in the family can lead to emotional and behavioral problems. Stereotyped with academic, emotional, and behavioral issues can lead and is still an issue. Food insecurity is another big issue. The limited or uncertain availability of nutritional, adequate, and safe food. This does not have an impact on educational success. The problem with these explanations is that they don't apply to all families. They provide only partial answers. Lone parent families are a varied group with quite different histories. Young people are more likely today to live, at least for some time, with a single parent. Now, these explanations also fail to account for all the influence, for good or ill, of extended family members and friends. Now, I'm going to revisit the teen mother perspective. Teen mothers is a woman who has her first birth under the age of 20. There's no epidemic of teen births. In 2012, just 3.4% of all Canadian births were from teen mothers. Most common among Aboriginal peoples and the rest of Canadian population. Concerns and questions over teen births focused on fewer younger ones. That is to say that under the age of 15 and under, only 79 babies were born in 2012, rather than older majority, the 18 plus majority of teen mothers. The younger group have not finished growing up physically, they have the least amount of education, and seem likeliest to live in poverty. The youngest teen mothers often live at home with parents. Once the baby is born, teen mother may have difficulty returning back to school. The kind of support young teens receive from their own parents and other relatives may prove very crucial for their future. Now, these supports are crucial and include the important life chances of education. babysitting family, financial support. However, support can bring disagreements, boundary issues, role confusion, and still back to the who am I issues. Even when teen mothers marry, rarely improve their financial status because their husbands often have poor prospects as well. Now, I've mentioned about the lone parent father. Proportion of lone parent fathers is growing. In 2011, nearly 1 in 5 single parents were men, mainly because mothers are less frequently being awarded sole custody of children following a breakup of a union. Men tend to become single parents in the middle and late years of a life cycle. Few single-parented families by men are in their teens or in their 20s. Children of lone parent families tend to be older. There are more similarities than differences between lone mothers and lone fathers, and really no difference regarding the children's psychological adjustment or social success or the level of stress a lone mother or lone father will experience. Single fathers are more so than single mothers are expected to be sole economic support for a family. So we've touched on a number of elements, and I hope you're seeing that the complexity of a single parent family is not as standard as everyone goes through the same thing. So what about the future? Well, all forecasts suggest an increase in the number of single parent families, especially as a result of divorce. The level of poverty is high among single parents, and that has far-reaching effects on children's physical and intellectual development. To offset some of the challenges, more accessible and affordable childcare options are needed. Lone parent families are increasing and can be part of many children's experiences. So, in addition, more pathways to educational opportunities for lone mothers in particular, thus increasing the prospects of employment and careers. Now, fathers are important to children's development and perhaps more to the nurture of children, so joint and shared custody may be something we'll see more of as time goes by. Many single parents receive much emotional and practical support from their extended families. Future success of lone parents and their children may depend on these supports. It's important to, especially for the sake of children, to eliminate stigma against single parent families that remain in society. Raising further the status of the lone parented family, as it appears to be around it appears it's going to be around in the future. So repairing the image of lone parent families can be very important. All right, so that's the end of lone parent families. I hope that's been helpful for you. And next week we're going to look at divorce. Okay, everybody. Good luck and keep up the good work. Bye now.